Loyal blog readers, thank you for tuning in today for our first in a series of video blogs regarding key class action developments. I'm joined today by my partners Jennifer Riley and Alex Karasik to discuss two seminal rulings of the Illinois Supreme Court interpreting the BIPA statute. BIPA is all about workplace class action liability in the privacy space. And the Illinois Supreme Court this month has issued two decisions, one called Cothran versus White Castle and the other Timms versus Black Horse Carriers, regarding two cutting-edge issues under the statute. White Castle concerns the measure of damages, how many times damages can be recovered for collection or possession of biometric information, and the Tim's case involves the statute of limitations. Alex, tell us what every HR manager, corporate counsel, or C-suite executive needs to know about the White Castle ruling from the Illinois Supreme Court.
Thank you, Jerry. The main takeaway from the White Castle ruling is that every actual discrete scan of a fingerprint or someone's biometrics constitute a violation of the BIPA. What does this mean? This means damages are going to exponentially skyrocket. And under a lot of BIPA settlements structured in the early years of the statute, these cases were settled on a per-person basis. But now, the Illinois Supreme Court has clarified that each actual scan is a violation. With each scan being a violation, one of the things that employers have to pay attention to is how many times a day employees are scanning in and out. In the employment context, if you have an employee scanning into work and out to work for lunch, plus in and out to come to and from work, that's potentially 4 scans per day. And if they take another break, that could be up to 6 scans per day. Times that by the number of employees in the workforce, and you're seeing the exponential increase in the amount of potential exposure. Finally, as Jen is going to discuss, when the actual claims accrue is important in terms of the White Castle ruling. Now, with this ruling, the last potential scan by an employee is where the statute of limitations may run, as opposed to if it was on a per-person basis, it might be the first actual scan. So this could have a significant impact for businesses, and this is the type of ruling that might keep corporate counsel up at night.
Jen, when it comes to the statute of limitations, what does the Illinois Supreme Court ruling in Timms mean in this space?
Great question, Jerry. So in Timms, the Illinois Supreme Court considered the statute of limitations applicable to the BIPA statute. The BIPA statute doesn't contain its own statute of limitations, and the Illinois Supreme Court found that a 5-year statute of limitations should apply. So that means that a potential plaintiff has 5 years to file a claim, and as Alex said, that's 5 years from his or her last scan. And also, the 5 years applies then to the definition of the class that such a plaintiff might assert. So if a plaintiff files within 5 years of his last scan, he could also then say, I'm seeking to represent a class as large as a class going back 5 years from his date of filing suit, and seek damages for that entire period on behalf of the class.
Alex, is this the final word, or are there any appeal prospects for the defense with these two decisions, which are exceedingly plaintiff-friendly?
Thank you, Jerry. Given that these are both fresh off the press, there aren't current any pending appeals yet, but it's possible that both of these cases could be appealed. Now that they've both been decided by the Illinois Supreme Court, the next potential step would be to petition the U.S. Supreme Court for certiorari. This could be significant if one of them were to actually receive cert being granted from the U.S. Supreme Court. In terms of the two, I would speculate that the White Castle case would be more likely to have cert granted, given the fact that the damages involved in that case could exponentially increase and have a huge harm on businesses in Illinois. The Timms case is pretty clear about the statute of limitations in that ruling, and that the statute doesn't specifically have one. They applied the Illinois catch-all. I think there's less room for the defense there to argue on cert about the potential impact of the ruling. So it'd be interesting to see if White Castle is appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Jen, I know that you're deep into this area and counsel many businesses on privacy practices. How do these two decisions alter the landscape of privacy exposures?
Well, these two decisions, especially when coupled together, could have significant financial impact. We've already been seeing huge settlements, and I anticipate that we're going to see settlement values increase more or at a faster rate in light of these two rulings. That hopefully businesses are already working with their outside counsel and even their vendors to implement consent forms, notice forms, destruction policies, and things of that nature to comply with the statute. But given the prevalence of these types of suits, we expect that the values of the settlements for potential violations that have already occurred are really going to skyrocket as a result of these rulings.
We view class action filings on a 24/7, 365 basis, and in the 2 weeks since the Illinois Supreme Court issued its rulings, between 7 to 15 class actions under the BIPA were filed each day against corporations. What do you see as some of the areas that defendants can still use to prevent certification of workplace class actions brought under BIPA?
That's a great question. Certainly one of the most likely defenses we're going to see in reaction to these cases is a defense that challenges the constitutionality of some of these damages awards that are now a potential in light of these rulings.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jen. These damages are certainly going to be at the forefront of a lot of appeals and challenges to BIPA pleadings. I think also BIPA defendants need to pay close attention to the exemptions. For instance, there's a healthcare worker exemption that I think you're going to see a lot of companies that are arguably on the fringe of that space trying to pigeonhole their defenses, saying, hey, we fit under the healthcare exemption or various other exemptions to try to thread that needle, given that the Illinois Supreme Court has ruled against defendants and employers in pretty much all of the major rulings in the last 3 to 5 years.
In thinking about the rulings, one of the areas I think that's never been tested before is the requirement of superiority, insofar as these used to be viewed as single low-value claims, but now with the White Castle rulings, even an individual claim can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think it'll be interesting to see how courts react to that particular defense. I'm aware that Duane Morris has published a new book on this area. Tell me about it and why it ought to be on the bookshelf of corporate decision makers.
That is correct. We have an all-new publication coming out called the Duane Morris Privacy Class Action Review. That review examines recent decisions, decisions from 2022, as well as what we anticipate for 2023 in terms of movements and trends.
The review is going to be available in an ebook format on the Duane Morris Class Action Defense blog at blogs.duanemorris.com/classactiondefense. And feel free to reach out to Jerry, Jen, or I if you'd like to request a copy as well.
Well, thanks so much, loyal readers, for joining us. Jen and Alex, thanks for your insights.